like every Thursday, you get a chance to reset, to connect with a part of you that hopefully is building up a state of mind, for lack of a better word, that's virtuous, that has a potential and a taste to it that is unlike the everyday, unless you're having a magnificent everyday. There's a flash flood warning for the area because it just poured water from the sky. So really for everyone it should be different. For everyone it should be individual. We all have, if we're in this place together, if we're in this place called samsara, we have some suffering, in inverted commas, some stuff that trips us over and over and over. We each have our patterns, we each have our thing. You know, we are saddened by that particular taste for us. We are disappointed by that particular thing for us. It might not be the same for another person. The opposite is also true. There is something magnificently unique about you that is beautiful, and that other people might struggle to become that. But for you, you don't even think or acknowledge it. That's just that you, and somehow we normalize it. That virtuous part of you, the one that gives you bliss, the one that gives you peace, the one, if you've tasted it, that is what we're connecting to. And the 2 hours that we spend together on Thursdays can be, and it's a trap, can be the thing we gather knowledge and do this philosophical internal debate about. And we need to do that. But if you go past that, it is also the time where the listener inside of you, the one that will become enlightened, the one that will become free from samsara, free from the cycles of suffering, that thing that will become that can hear and build its palace, if you like, its world, its mandala, with the bricks you put in today. So the way we hear, the way we are with ourselves, listening, conceiving, connecting, it's like, if you're as old as me, it's like when you had the reel-to-reel magnetic tapes, you know? You can erase those with a magnet, but you can direct all the magnetic particles on that tape towards one direction. You can make a particular sound. You can make a particular pattern. And this is all we are doing with this information. So it is my job to share with you a perfect lineage as best as I can. I apologize for any silliness I introduce in there except for the jokes. But it's really your job to say, how can I apply that for me? And sometimes that's a struggle. Because I'll give you my experience. As a student for a long time, still am. I don't know the way I short-circuit myself until after I've done. And then I catch my pattern and I did it again. Yeah, so this space, this time, allow yourself a second, and whether you have to visualize the stupid you out there, you know, unable to enter the building, you know, with a protective field by the door that is only allowing the you that is just ripe and ready to get over the suffering, get over the trips, get over the disappointments, and actually get firm and settled in a path that wakes you up, Buddhas you up, you know, to awake now, not some nirvana palace, you know, not the silly conceptions we have. So your enlightened mind will look different than my enlightened mind, but overall it will have some qualities that are the same. And one is not a single experience of that mind will be disturbing. That's a possibility. And so allow that to enter. And with that we start what we call Asian Classics Institute Class 2, the ethical life. If you haven't had a chance to pick up the readings and homeworks and quizzes, it's there. You'll see the format of the class today. I'll do a little bit of a review. this is the motivation I was talking about. So the way you listen and so on will give you what we call realizations on the path. Realizations are moments you go, what the hell just happened? My whole worldview changed. I had an aha moment, and you might have it if you're an artist, you might have it with paint, you might have it in an acting experience, you might have it in your thing. But what if you have it about the whole status of reality? Yeah? And so you have these realizations, they come fast based on how you connect to this information. So for you it's different. So to make sure that we listen with that pure mind, we offer a perfect mandala, a perfect universe, to that thing that is enlightenment, and then we take refuge. So, David, do you want to go?
Sashi
Kukir Jushin Metoptram Rirav Lingshin Yundehim Badi Songde Shindu Miteruardi Drobun Namda Shinla Jiparsho Idam Guru Ratnamandalakam Niryatayami
Sangye
Shridam Zaki Jognam La Janju Bardu Dakni Gapsuchi Daki Shinyen Gipe Sonam Ki Rola Benchir Sangye Druparsho
Sangye
Chudam Soki Choknam La Janchu Bardu Dakni Gapsuchi Daki Shinyen Gipe Sonam Ki Rola Benchir Sangye Druparsho
Sangye
Chudam Soki Choknam La Janchu Bardu Dakni Gapsuchi Daki Shinyen Gipe Sonam Ki Rola Benchir Sangye Druparsho.
So let's do a quick meditation. Take a comfortable seated position. I took you quickly over on a meditation that will get us into the subject matter tonight. Once you're comfortable, the idea is you're going to park your body and forget about it. You're going to start going into the way your mind experiences and perceives. So your body is not a distraction, you don't focus on itching, stretching, etc. We're just leaving it alone for about 7 minutes. The key here is to have your spine straight. And you begin to slowly and gently take charge of the way your mind is working by just focusing on the room, if you like. See if you can conceptualize the room we're sitting in. If you're more of a tactile person, see if you can feel the distance between you and the walls, the ceiling, the structure of the entire building in the city, and so on. If you're an auditory person, see if you can hear the multitude of sounds that are close and far away, layers upon layers of movement of sound. Allow your mind to rest on one and then the other, until you have the entire symphony of sounds in your awareness. Sensation is your focus, and the sensation of the breath as it enters and exits your body. At what point does it touch your body? Where is it warm and cool on the inhale or the exhale? And just rest your mind on that. If you're a visual person, you can imagine the placement of the buildings and the space we're in. Don't worry too much about the distractions, just allow your mind to paint a mental image, whether it's a feeling or a sound or whatever it is of where you are on the planet and in your world. And gradually and gently, leaving that as a continuous background, knowing it will be there to pick up later, bring your attention to your body right here, right now. How does it feel in the space you're sitting in? Relax any tension in the muscles of your legs and torso, your shoulders, and your face. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. Just observe. That's all you need to do. Now imagine the most evolved beings possible. It could be your Lama, it could be a Buddha, it could be an imaginary being, fully evolved where their bodies are just very subtle light. They appear to you in front of you, floating, facing you. That inside their minds you get a glimpse of it. It is complete peace with the world you're in, with you as you are. Just observe them and feel them like a space in front of you. There's a brightness about them with you, a brightness in you, observing them, being close to them. And then we're going to do a small exercise with them observing. Remembering that the way they observe is free of judgment, complete and utter bliss and perfection in everything you do. And the exercise is you think back at something that happened to you over the last 24 hours that caused you even a slight moment of mental rejection, anger, disappointment, jealousy, hatred, anything like that. Anything that invoked in you a negative state of mind. Without getting into it again, just observe it as a third party. Watch how it came up. Watch how overwhelming it was in the period that it rose at its peak. How it blinded. And watch how it slowly dissipated. How it went away. And just replay that moment again. Something triggered a response. Before that trigger, you weren't feeling that negative state. Then it rose, it overwhelmed, and it dissipated. Don't connect to it, just watch it as something that happened in the past. And then ask yourself, is that trigger always the cause of that feeling? Was the trigger for you the thing that truly arose that emotion and that state of mind? See if you can find anything about what your mind tells you was the trigger as the true causation for all the sensations and mental thoughts that went through your mind and your body after that event. Then ask yourself, does that event always cause, always, without exception, cause the same response? Not just to you, but to everyone else on this planet. Does that event always trigger a negative state of mind? Then ask yourself, have you ever had that event occur where your response was the opposite? Did you ever have a positive state of mind from a similar event? Now imagine the being in front of you, observing you, question your reality in that way. Coming up with walls to your reasoning. opening your mind to the possibility that there is another thing causing your reality. Just the effort itself. Observe the being in front of you. See you make that step. And imagine that they knew with pure precision exactly what that mental process of yours right now will result in your future experience of yourself. Imagine that they knew with complete certainty the result of your efforts right now, the seed you just planted in questioning your reality at a level that's deeper than every day. Just with that open-mindedness, come back to your body, keep them close, either at the crown of your head or at your heart. And welcome to the class. So who's writing who? Yeah. So is your mind writing you, or are you writing your mind? Are you your mind? Is your mind you? When things take over, where are you? The owner of that thing. So, doing a quick review, see what we learned from last class. Just leave that state of mind sitting there. Yeah, I don't want to give it a form or a definition. I want to leave it a little open. Okay, this is quick call and response, kirtan style. It's sort of in the vein of the Vinaya Sutra, which I might have given you an answer, that's coming up. It's written in this kind of, do this, that will happen. Do this will happen. And then this and that and that. So here we go. Give me words for the Buddhist discipline. Give me a Sanskrit and a Tibetan word. What's discipline? Discipline.
Vinaya.
Vinaya. Cool. So, Vinaya is the Tibetan word.
No.
Doa.
Sanskrit.
Thank you, Sanskrit. So it's important to get other languages associated to the concepts you're developing here, because it's easy to connect our home language or our native language to this concept, and we've got all our childhood associations to those concepts, even the bad ones. So bringing a new language in, new sounds, Tibetan, Sanskrit or Chinese, I don't care. You actually give yourself freedom to attach the conceptions of your choice to these words. Okay? So it's not quite discipline. Discipline has a feeling to it. When you say Dua is that thing that we're talking about. So Dua is Tibetan for Buddhist discipline, and Vinaya is Sanskrit. Correct? Congratulations, you get 10 points. Now, literal meaning of the word Vinaya or Dua. What's the literal meaning? I talked about it a little bit. To tame. Good. Visual trigger in the previous slide. Horse. Training. Disciple is that person that got dual wad, right? So teacher-disciple thing. Remember we talked about that. Next question is, not a question, just a quote from Master Dharmabhadra. Do you remember who he was? Master Dharmabhadra, I talked about him last week. Yeah.
Is he the one who sent his student to go make monasteries?
No, that's good. But he wrote one of the commentaries will study. Okay? But he said we call duwa, we call discipline because it tames the 7 and its friends. What are the 7?
Non-virtues of body and speech.
Right. So we have this list, like in most spiritual practices, where you tame your body, speech, and mind. Right? But Vinaya here is talking mainly about taming the first 7 of the 10 non-virtues, which are no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct,
Decisive speech.
divisive speech, lying,
Mindless speech.
yeah,
And
Harsh words.
harsh words. Excellent. Now they sound, see, remember what I said at the beginning of the class, they sound like the 10 Commandments, right? And we can dismiss them like we've always dismissed them if you're anything like me and if you remember the story about my dear priest friend. Okay. What Buddha is saying in the 10 non-virtues, so the 7 along with their friends, meaning all the other stuff those things cause. Buddhist philosophy says that your very reality, every detail of your existence, not just your conception, the fact of your existence and the fact of the planet you're in, and the fact of the relationships we have, and the facts of time on earth, and the fact of how many breaths we take, every single thing, without exception, yeah, is produced, is dependently arising. It arises independence, not Independence Day, but in dependence, yeah, to certain causes and conditions. And there are lots of explanations of what that means, but at the end of the day, when you seek, like you did hopefully in the meditation we just did, at the end of the day, the ultimate cause and condition is your mind. Your mind is most of it. There is stuff, but most of it is your mind. Your particular mind looking at one thing will form a particular reality, and my particular mind looking at the same thing will form another very real reality. 2 realities at once. 7 billion realities on the planet. At the end of the day, whether you have an awesome life or a crap experience of life comes from you. Right? So, if that's true, which, we discussed it over the last 7, 8 Asian Classics courses, if that's true, and that takes some getting used to and understanding and questioning and practicing, then generally speaking, for the human species and some others, right, if our tendency as a group is to protect life, that will have a certain result instead of killing. So if you refrain from one of the 7, abandon one of the 7, if you have the discipline to tame your impulses, and not just killing, I mean, who's killed a human in the last 24 hours? Who's killed an animal in the last 24 hours? Who's contributed to killing a human or another sentient in the last 24 hours? Right, so what's it talking about? Right, and we're talking about very, very subtle impulses of human nature, of being nature, animals included, that wants to hurt another versus us, this separation between us and them. Mine, not yours. Me first, you last. Yeah. So, if our reality comes from the impulses of our mind, we have certain flavors as humans. And if the Buddha says, if you don't want to go into the philosophy and all this, just don't do these 10 and see what happens. Yeah. And the first 7 relate to body and speech. So, if you protect life, what will result? If you honor other beings' relationships, that's what sexual misconduct means primarily. Yeah. Imagine if all you were thinking day in, day out as you met other sentients walking the planet was, I want your life to be preciously protected. Like if you see any danger coming towards anybody or any threat, your first impulse is not to look after yourself, but to take care of them. And then imagine a mind of that habituated for a very long time, what kind of result it would have. So Master Dhammapada is saying that the reason we call this whole study of the Buddhist teachings, the first basket, the first pitaka, Vinaya or discipline, is because it disciplines us from these sevens and their friends, but it disciplines two things. Do you remember what they were? I think I put it up there. It tames the mind and the senses. We're forever wanting to fulfill the senses, and that's what we create trip-ups in our lives. You know, if I just had more sex, I'll be happy. If I just had more food, I'll be happy. And then I have to go get liposuction. You know, if I then had... So the senses, the implication here is we think we're going to fix our dissatisfaction, our quiet desperation by filling up the senses. So taming says you got a taste of what the code of reality truly is, and you can tame the mind that engages with that, because you're engaging with a truth, and then you can tame your body, which is habituated, or the senses which are habituated to thinking they're going to get the happiness or run away from the unhappiness if you just drink another latte. Okay, let's see what the next question is. Do you remember I made 2 points about the Buddha and Vinaya? I didn't have to frame this question. Why is it such a big deal, Vinaya? The whole idea of discipline, which by the way means taking vows, being a monastic, making a promise, doing something with your mental continuum that's more than just being a good person.
I don't know. Was one of them that the Buddha would always be in the room?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so I didn't have to frame the question. There are 2 vital points that connect the whole study of taming your mind, mental discipline, and the Buddha himself. And one was that the teachings on Vinaya by themselves, let's see what I wrote, were enough to get you enlightened. Right? Just the teachings on Vinaya have everything of the Buddha's teaching in them. And the second one was that if it was taught somewhere properly, the Buddha, an enlightened mind, like the one you invited in your meditation, is truly present. He says in the translation, not deliberately, really there. He doesn't say, oh, I'm sort of metaphorically there. You know, that he uses the word, I am truly there. So that gives you a clue also about what a state of Vinaya, what a state of Dulwa would create your reality to appear. Because you can take the whole Buddhist teachings as there was a dude, like the dude's here in 2014 who was a normal person, and then, except he was a prince, and he saw some suffering in the world and he wanted to wake up from it. He went into the forest and did all this stuff, and then he sat under a tree one day and said, oh my God, there's another world over here, and then began teaching this stuff. And you can, and that is the way we think or conceive of Buddha. But if you link the idea of an enlightened mind, not just that historical Buddha, then the idea that a being, a sentient, yeah, can appear to a group of people whose perceptions are reality. Your reality is different to my reality, but somehow a collective or an individual has a perception of a reality of a being who is perfected. Thank you. Then a Buddha can appear. A very real Buddha. For those that have the capacity, the karma, the mental projections to experience that as a real Buddha. For real. As real as this. And then that's another story. So then this, do you see, you can think of over there in my past, there was a skin and bone Buddha that got enlightened. Said nice things, I can use them to get a better job. Or, if you have a deeper understanding of karma and emptiness and how the mind projects onto blankness, emptiness, the potential nature of all things, and how that forms the reality we are locked into right now. How karma creates a reality we are locked into right now to experience. Then it's possible to, if taming the mind is done correctly, you could experience an enlightened being here, right now, this moment, in your consciousness. It's not something you force, it's something that arises. You can't force your reality, you know. But your reality comes from something. And under investigation, you have moments of awakening, realizations that give you certainty about it. So I'm rambling and you're quiet. But good call, thank you. Now, remember the Tripitaka? These were the 3 baskets. These correlated to the 3 trainings, 3 extraordinary trainings. Give me an auxiliary answer to this. Why extraordinary training and not just regular training? Remember, I said it last week.
We focused on higher purpose, like higher
Cool. What's the highest?
gratitude.
Enlightenment, Buddhahood, Nirvana. Yeah, that would be the highest. So the training will get you there. Like instead of training to be a piano player or training to be a singer, you're training to get enlightened. So they are extraordinary trainings because they give you an extraordinary result. Yeah? Cool. Can someone get me a glass of water, please? I'm getting pasty. Let's see if your answer was correct. Damn it, Hector gave you the wrong. You saw the answer, didn't you? Damn it. Link the 3 extraordinary trainings. What were they? The extraordinary training on
Wisdom.
extraordinary training on
Meditation.
meditation or concentration
And ethical living.
and ethical living, right?
Should they be reversed?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the first one is
Ethical living.
excellent. The first one, is the training on Vinaya, on the ethics. And remember, I couldn't ever connect. And I'm always like a little embarrassed, you know. Even now, I have a flavor of it which is stupid because I know better. Of saying there's something about virtue, something about feeling, being, and doing good in your world. Goodness, kindness, gentleness, loveness, all the positiveness words that you can. Thank you very much. There's something about virtue. Ethics, not in the way of rules and thou shalt. There's something about being in a state where you are just constantly kind, streaming kindness through the pipe of your mind. Just every moment, kindness, kindness. And imagining that land on the fabric of your mind which will force your perception in the future. There is something about that that relates to, and Tsongkhapa in his letter to his disciple who was building the monastery made the link, says that even in the 1400s, this link between ethics, concentration, and wisdom were lost in the 1400s. Very few people understood why the Pitakas were that way, why that link occurred. So I gave you a metaphor for that last class. Can you give me a link between the 3 extraordinary trainings, ethics, concentration, and wisdom? How do they link?
The reflection of the moon.
So what's the moon?
The moon is Buddha.
Nirvana.
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 Yeah, great. Moon is nirvana. What is your mind?
The lake.
Choppy lake. Yeah? How can you reflect nirvana in a choppy lake?
Through your action.
Ethical living.
You have to still the waters in order to see that, right? How can you still the waters? Concentration, meditation. Yeah? Wisdom means the moon appears. Yeah? Nirvana is there. I understand. I see nirvana. I see a possibility of nirvana. I have a direct perception of emptiness, if you like. Yeah? The moon. Wisdom. Emptiness. Leading to nirvana. Yeah? Only seeable in a clear crystal lake. Choppy mind. Not possible to see. Still the mind. Training on concentration. We did that in ACI 3, right? The training on meditation. And all the finite trainings. And then we added to it ACI 5, the training on karma. Then we punched in the training on wisdom, ACI 6, which deals with the perfection of wisdom, prajna paramita. Wisdom mean. Now give me a layman's term for wisdom. Because remember my pet gripe is we create words and then all of a sudden we make them things. So describe wisdom. Imagine it's your last chance. You're the last person on earth that knows about wisdom the way that this lineage explains it. And you're on your way out and you're leaving someone an impression of wisdom.
You create your own reality.
Okay, cool. How? Give me the wisdom of how.
That everything has cause and effect. So your actions, body, speech, and mind are going to be the causes of reaching enlightenment. And you do it through these three trainings. The mind training is to be able to create.
Okay. So give me a metaphor for what's the classical metaphor for the idea of wisdom? A diamond. Why? Yeah, emptiness, a diamond, same. Yeah. The word emptiness, shunya. Yeah. Shunyata. I learned this week that it became sivir, I think, in Arabic, which became zero in Spanish, which we kept as zero. So when the Arabs went into Spain, they were trying to communicate this idea of a zero. And I can't remember how you spell the Arabic zero, but the Spanish could only say zero. And we brought it into zero. It comes from the Sanskrit shunyat, emptiness, which is the word that Nagarjuna uses to describe this idea of there is nothing, without exception, that has a nature that is solid from its own side. You or me, your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, the lamp, the ceiling, there is nothing that can be found to be only that. And the fact of that means that it has no possibility to be absolutely anything but everything, depending on whichever mind is observing. That alone can take a lifetime, if not 3 countless eons, to engage with in a way that you see the reality of it and then begin to work with that mode of being to give you results in that realm of existence, being Buddha mind. So wisdom, which peers through the falseness of what we are locked into thinking this is our reality, and if we're truly honest with ourselves, I hate saying it because it takes the rug from under you, you know. We have no idea what we're doing on the planet. Nothing works for us, really. Nothing at all works. We saw this awesome documentary, 20 Feet from Stardom, the other day. It's the most magnificent thing I'd seen in a long, long time. Everyone said, you've got to watch it. Finally saw it, you know, and I saw beautifully in this documentary that everyone was doing certain things to try and get this result. Yeah? And some got it and some didn't. And you could say, well, it's that particular thing and that particular thing, but we have zero clue. If I said to you, make me this result, yeah? Would you have 100% certainty that you could get that result? If I said, earn $100,000, build a beautiful home, have a magnificent relationship, be happy. Of course that. We are stumbling on each other. And in our blindness, we stumble like crabs getting out of a bucket, pulling each other down, trying to get the extra dollar, the extra happiness, the extra relationship, and blah, blah. And I'm sort of tired of saying that whole thing. But if we're completely honest, when we take medication, we have no clue whether it works or not. And when it doesn't work, we make some bullshit excuse that, oh, maybe it was this, or my stomach, or I better get another medication. Doctors don't have a clue what they're prescribing. And sometimes cancer treatment works for some, and then it doesn't for others, and you could say it was this and that. And we have no clue. We stumble. We have ranges. We set a 70% range. We sort of figure that out. And it can just stop. You know, and a being that has pierced through the fabric of that crab bucket says there is something else causing it. And it comes from your mind. And we call the karma, but you don't call it karma, call it whatever you need to call it to recognize that is the very essence of your mind projecting a reality onto something that has no nature from its own side. And hopefully you got a taste of that in your meditation just now. The thing that caused you an upsetness. Does that thing always cause an upsetness? Always necessarily, without exception? And if your answer is no, then, but yet you were angry, or frustrated, or jealous, or whatever, then you're in the bucket of samsara. And the Buddha said there is something else, and I've seen it, and that's the moon. You can only get there if your mind is still. If you're not crawling over yourself and everyone else to get out of the bucket. And Tsongkhapa says profoundly in the 1400s, even though this is true throughout all of these philosophies, proclamations, it's forgotten now in the 1400s that the only way you get an awesome meditation when you can get a glimpse at a reflection of a moon is if you keep your morality. If you don't have anything in your conscience that is even a ripple, then you see the moon. Then your mind is at peace. And like finding a boyfriend or finding a girlfriend or looking for the best job or any of these other things that we've all engaged in, it comes when you're not trying. It comes when you give up, sort of. But you give up because you've been trying. And all the trying is the causes. It just doesn't come instant. So you can't. So at some point, maybe after 3 years of meditating and getting it wrong in your own mind, you have an experience that confirms, like the water got stilled enough to see a little bit of the moon. Like, oh my God, there was a moon. It wasn't what I thought. And you feel it. The only way to get that stillness is through the practice of ethics. And the Buddha says, well, you can believe me and try and work it out or whatever, or you can just try the practice. Like, stop hurting other people.
What is it about unethical living that ripples the waters?
Mm-hmm. You can answer that. What do you think? I'll take your suggestions. Because whose ethics we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the questions. So give me ethics, you know? I know that if I grab my lifestyle and put it into another being, it would be unethical living. Yeah. I know that the opposite is equal. If someone forced me to behave and be in the world in a certain way, it would feel like unethical living to me, even though it might be ethical to them. Yeah. So if you go against that congruency that knows what's right, it's in your conscience. It's biting at you. It keeps arising. It keeps saying, bah. It's like this. It goes from a subconscious to a conscious, and it begins to manifest outwardly. And I'll give you a simple example. I mean, I might snap at somebody because I'm aggravated or doing something, and that somebody, when I snapped at them, as I snapped at them, and I said something harsh with an intent that was harsh, and they might not even recognize that it was that, right? They might say, oh, Hector was a bit short today. But inside of me, I'm like, you bloody idiot. Why'd you ask me such a stupid question like that, right? That nobody saw that, just Hector. The words were, okay, and then, oh, he was a bit short today, maybe he needed to get off the phone or something. Yeah? it continues to grow in my mind. I know it comes back, it keeps looping and looping and circling and circling. This is a mini Korwa course, the mini wheel of lives that keeps going, and it ripples the stillness that says things are okay. That's a good. Is that okay? Okay, so we got the link. Yeah. The bottom line, Tsongkhapa is saying, if you want to have awesome meditations, have some kind of ethical practice in your world. Be kind. Don't have any regrets. Don't have anything that disturbs your mind. Don't cheat people. Don't hurt people. Don't do unto others. Don't do things to other beings that you would not have done yourself. Now I feel like a Monty Python sketch. So killing, let's take killing, yeah? Because like, who said that killing is such a bad thing after all, right? So if somebody began to want to take my life right now, I would probably resist, yeah, highly likely. Which means I want to keep my life, it's mine, thank you very much, I like it a lot. Knowing that, and me wanting to take another life, is the disconnect. Yeah? And yet, we're quite prepared to push somebody and not be too safe around them. So we would take care of this thing we call our body. Yeah, way more than that thing that's not my body. Yeah? So if I do to that body what this body wouldn't like, that's in there. And that grows, like all the other seeds grow. So it creates ripples. Let's see, still in review mode. Are you all quiet because, damn it, I gave you the answer. Jason Kappa, JTK, said in a negative way and in a positive way, what should our motivation be when studying ethics? Meaning, what should we be thinking about right now when studying ethics? I'm going to be a good Buddhist, and everyone's going to think I'm such a good Buddhist because look at me, I'm keeping my book and I'm such a good Buddhist, right? What did he say about that?
That's a long motivation.
No, he's saying if it's just that, if it's for status or anything like that, you've lost the point, and you may as well bake cakes or something. It's just another thing, just collecting stuff. The real motivation should be what?
The benefits of all others.
At least renunciation, right? Sorry, you were going to say. Okay. At least renunciation. And renunciation means what? Things don't work the way I've always tried to make them work. Something else has to work. I give up on that old way of doing things because things don't work. I'm trying something deeper, ultimate, stronger. The answer is not in another relationship, in another job, in another bit of money, in the way I engage with my reality before. The answer is not in the way that everyone else in the crab bucket is trying to get free. There's another thing, and I'm in for that. Renunciation. I'm fed up of things not working. I've had 20 relationships. I've had 30 jobs. The bosses end up looking the same. The relationships end up creating the same causes in my disappointment. It's me. I've studied the 13 different kinds of things that interest me. The 14th one feels the same. It's me. I've moved countries because I'm so annoyed with reality. The same people appear. Sometimes I'm cannily they have the same names. It's like a big message. It's like the world is this perfect mirror for the content of your mind. The world is a perfect mirror for the content of your mind. And there are some lovely bits and there's some crunchy bits, It's your mind. And then we get into this Hindu idea of the Indra's web, which all these perfect diamonds reflecting perfectly every other diamond on that web. then we just perfectly reflect each other. This beautiful, complex thing. So what if one diamond got a perfect reflection? Then they would only ever see the other diamonds as perfect. So Gejai Tsongkhapa says, true desire to escape this suffering. That's renunciation. Yeah, true desire to stop the disappointments. True desire to say, okay, I have to recognize that this pattern is obvious and there is a way out. Like, nothing is fixed. Nothing is like constant. Nothing stays. That means that the shittiness also doesn't have to stay. You know, it's not like we're trapped in samsara forever. You know, the state of mind which cycles my disappointments, my state of being, can stop. It's a coarse thing. You can rip it out like a weed if you find its root. But it's a nasty little root. So, next question. We had one main source of Vinaya scripture, because there's all these texts. Remember I told you there were two main texts and then there were four auxiliary, blah, blah, blah. But it was all collected into one called, this I don't really expect you to remember, Dulwado, yeah? Which is the Vinaya Sutra. It's actually, I'm going to go through an outline today of all the stuff that's in there so you can see where all these different Buddhist practices come from and how they relate to stealing the lake, to creating the courses to allow a state of meditation to occur enough to have a reflection of wisdom. So this is where Master Dhamma, Gunaparabha, 300 AD, did a commentary. Usually Vinaya, the word sutra means the word spoken by the Buddha, right? But here, it's just a short book. So don't get confused. Vinaya Sutra is not something spoken by the Buddha. It's a collection of a whole bunch of things that the Buddha spoke, and it's a short book, commentary, an Indian commentary, pre-Tibetan for those that care. And now we get to, these were the three commentaries that we're going to cover. The Essence of the Ocean of Vinaya by Tsongkhapa. This is one in your reading. Daymaker will put light on that. And Wishful Feeling Jewel by Chani Lama, he was the one that wrote most of the Tibetan monastic books for ceremony. This commentary here is what will give us the outline of the entire Dulwado, the Vinaya Sutra. That's what I'm using for that. Okay, here we go.
Why was it called Daymaker?
Why was it?
Yeah.
Because what's a daymaker? What was the
sun?
The sun. It shines the light. It's like a sun on Tsongkhapa's work, which was other commentary we'll use. Okay, questions, comments, because it's all heady now. Who thinks they got control of their mind? Come on. No, really, you think so? No? Who thinks they got 50% control of their mind? Who wants to wake up happy every morning? You know? If we had control, we'd do it, right? But I'm waking up happy today. Ding! Who's tried to wake up happy in the morning and within 10 minutes you've got the shits like there's no tomorrow? We have to think about the idea of Vinaya. And this is hard. When Geshe Michael taught it, he tried to make this point, and I don't know whether I was too arrogant, too closed, or whatever, but I wasn't listening, and I had to fail many times in order to get it. And the idea that Vinaya, the discipline that it takes to say, I'm engaging with my mind until I have some control, until I've tamed it. It's not a crazy wild, and it like slippery soap in a Greek gay shower, it will go all sorts of places. Sorry for the visual.
So hairy.
As soon as you get close to taming the mind, it will morph. You only have a short window of habituation before it morphs, and then you're not even aware of how it took you over here. And then you begin that whole process again, and you get a little bit of stillness, and you get to see what's going on. And when you're grasping and forming and sensing what's going on, you think you've got it, and in the holding, you're over here. And you haven't figured out how it did that. Until that happens enough times that then you, what I was saying before, you get sort of fed up and you're like, okay, let me just watch this thing because there's something deeper. That's progress.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to just talk about. Is noticing when it's doing that and noticing that that's not you.
Yeah.
It's the mechanism of the brain.
Beautiful.
And allowing it and
It's
recognizing.
progress.
Yeah.
But you get caught in it, you get sucked in it, you get lost in it. Yeah? And in that engagement, in that thing, that can lead to a whole philosophical discussion. But in that thing, you know you are progressing. Yeah? But you hardly recognize it because you're in it. So I advise you, if you're beginning or doubling your efforts or doing anything with the Duwa course, with the Vinaya practice, write yourself a note now, early days write yourself a note, post it to yourself, don't open it for another 2 years. And say, these are the things I have not tamed. These are the things I'm working towards. These are the things that have been pulling me a long life. I will make an effort to do this and that and this and that. Just a short little note to yourself. It's been a beautiful surprise to open those 2, 3, 10 years later and go, I've progressed. Because when you're in it, you hardly recognize everything. So let me just quickly tell you about, it'll be 3 main sections today. It'll be the preliminary overview, the main part of the root commentary, and then some part at the end, the auxiliary part of this text that explains all the structure. I'll give you a hint of all the things that we'll cover in the rest of the course. Yeah. So the preliminary overview covers a summary of the Buddha's enlightenment. And every single text that deals with Vinaya will have this, a story of the Buddha's life, a story of the Buddha's enlightenment, right? Which in the sutra term takes how long? You remember? I mentioned it at the beginning of the class. How long does it take? Yeah?
3 countless eons.
Yeah, that's the English translation for a specific number in Sanskrit, which is 10 to the power of 6 or 60. 10 to the power of 60 times 3. Yeah? So 10, that's countless eons. It takes that amount of effort and karma, meditating and struggling, that many lifetimes in order to get enlightened. So in a condensed way, it also describes, that the Vinaya Sutra describes how the 10 bodhisattva bhumis, do you know what they are? Remember those? 10 bodhisattva, 10 grounds is a translation, or 10 steps that a bodhisattva, a being who wishes to reach enlightenment for the sake of other beings, how they, as realizations, erupt in a sentient, in a mind stream, to reach a state of perfect Buddhahood. So it describes that process. Yeah, that, for those of you that know the 5 paths, this is the shortest description of how to get enlightened. Do you remember the 5 paths? Path of accumulation, preparation, seeing,
No more learning.
habituation, and no more learning. Yeah? So first you collect enough virtue to begin to, which is the first path. In essence, it means you have done some renunciation, enough to collect enough virtue to begin to have the idea emerge in your reality that the world isn't what you think it is. That there is a freedom from the suffering. You're outside the cage of ignorance, locked in. You have a perception that there's something else happening here and that you're capable to connect to it. And then you go through the path of preparation where you begin to study these ideas. And it may come to you as a Tibetan Buddhist class, it might come to you as a Hindu teacher, it might come to you in the yoga pose, it might come to you in all sorts of ways. But the idea begins to pop into your consciousness, it comes into your reality. Don't forget, your reality comes from your courses, which means you've put that in there at some previous time as some kind of virtue, some goodness. Yeah. And you begin to study the idea of, in essence, karma and emptiness, how this blank field, the emptiness of all things, this infinite potential in everything, can emerge as a blissful experience of an enlightened mind. So you study emptiness, you study karma, you study all the things that create that state of mind. And you do enough of those courses. You do enough investigation with enough fervor and passion and truth that your mind begins to reorganize until you have, at the end of that path, you have this thing called the direct perception of dependent origination. So at the end of the second path, you get a experience, like a transcendental experience, how your mind is actually imputing reality on blankness. You see your mind actually construct a complete reality where there was none like that, but it's real. And you're like, oh my God, I just did that. So they say that's the peak of the second path, preparation. And then you enter what's called the path of seeing, where you have a direct perception of emptiness. You have a complete immersion, it's called water poured into water, of, we say direct perception of emptiness, but it is a complete non-conceptual. There's no observer, there's nothing to be observed. You're completely in the fabric of all things, everything. And as you emerge out of that, you begin to exit the path of seeing, where there's detailed descriptions of this from many paths, not just this one, where you then begin to have this conception of your world, you're returning into this, you went from everything to this thing that you called self, yeah? When you feel it like a gravity and a pressure, and your mind begins to reorganize the new information that it just saw reflected on that still mind, the ultimate nature of all things, you begin to see it back with your old mind, because you still got the karmas of that to habituate out of. So that's called the path of habituation, the fourth path, because you're habituating your world to what you just saw. You're getting used to, I just saw the fabric of ultimate reality, how everything truly is. And yet it appears this way. I now know for certainty, without a doubt, without a scratch of doubt, that I've created my reality in this way. And that everything that appears is like a mirage, but it's real. There's no contradiction. And so you begin this process of habituating your world to what you just saw, to a true sense of reality, rather than the fake crab-like in the bucket reality. And that path, the path of habituation, is where the second of the 10 bodhisattva bhumis begin. The first one begins at the path of sin. And then you go through the spiritual developments, and you evolve as a being, experiencing yourself in relation to your world. And you go through this 10 bodhisattva bhumis, which in essence, for those of you that have done it, summarize basically into the 6 perfections. The beginning is the 6 perfections: perfection of generosity, ethics, and so on, patience. So the beginning of the sutra, of all the Vinaya Sutras, talk about the Buddhist enlightenment. It walks us through this from a normal person to that kind of person. It also describes the exact major and minor deeds of the Buddha. So when he left the palace, when he saw the suffering in beings, when he tried all these ascetic practices to get enlightened, and they worked and they didn't work, and when he got fed up and sat under the tree and had a realization, when he came out and turned the first wheel of the Dharma, and he describes in some detail that. It talks about that thing we discussed, why it's the highest instruction of the Buddha, meaning, when it's taught properly, I'm there. Rare for a Tibetan text, so this was a Tibetan collection of all the prior sutras. Rare for that, it describes a Tarut text, the 4 explanatory sutras, and all the other small works that it's based on. But in essence, this first section talks mostly, and all of them, about the Buddhist life in order to address this idea of lendre. And lendre is really karma and its causes, cause and effect. The correlations between every single detail of the world we're living in, including the temperature, the breeze on my face, the warmth from the light. Why am I hearing that outside? Why is this a building? Why is it 2014? Why are your eyes so pure? Blah, 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 blah. It goes through all the finite details. It says that every finite detail of your experience was caused by something. It didn't just come out of nowhere. And only a being who is an enlightened being, who can tap into the ultimate nature of reality, can actually tell you why this is waving in the wind, and why the fan is working at that speed, and why we have power unlike the people in Nepal, and not this person over there who's sitting hot in the corner and that one who's okay. All the detailed workings of our very existence can be perceived and correlated through a mind that's enlightened. And for that we have to explain these 3 realities, which is Nungyur. Do you remember these? I covered this in previous courses. Nungyur, Kokyur, and Shintu Kokyur. Do you remember that? What Nungyur? Obvious reality, okay? Meaning, but basically it means shapes and colors and things that we can all agree are out there. Yeah? Oh, there's green. Now, is Nungyur for everybody? Is obvious reality obvious to everybody?
Not too sure.
Yes.
What if you're colorblind?
What if you're blind?
Right? What if you're blind? Okay, great. So no, we can say the majority of us, right? So this is a fluid description of what we are going to call obvious reality. There's some pretty obvious things that we all share. And that can be Nungyur, the stuff that is captured by your sense organs, if you like. So colors and shapes by your eyes. Yeah, vibrations, sounds by your eardrums and so on. So that's one level of reality. There's another level of reality that is occurring simultaneously and with as much gusto, and that's called Kokyur. It's hidden reality. It's hidden from being obvious. We have to use a deductive process to engage with it. Yeah? The trick I did when I taught it was, this phone is here, right? First we can debate whether you call it a phone, but it's this rectangle thing, is the back of it still there? Is the front of it there? As I turn it, you're using some kind, subconsciously now because we're so used to it, we're using some kind of deductive reasoning to say that the back is still there. But you have zero evidence of that in Nungyur reality. Yeah? That's a whole story. They say, so, if you hear a sound, you can imagine I dropped it, right? And some of you said, no, he's still got it in his hand, some dropped. You're not sure. Unless you can see it, which you can. So that's Kokyur, hidden reality. There's lots, we operate in this mode all the time, and mostly we make mistakes, right? And mostly we're okay. So we say, if I roughly take 6 aspirin, my headache will go away. Right? We use this deductive reasoning. We're not sure that it will. Yeah? So there's that reality. They say that the direct perception of emptiness, the understanding of emptiness is here, is Nungyur, is hidden to us. We can't operate on a day-to-day basis in our day-to-day reality experiencing emptiness, where there's something in our mind that prevents us. We have to use reasoning to say, is there truly an object that I'm engaging with, the object that I see? Is that truly a lamp from its own side? Does everything that touches this object, call it a lamp, engage with it as a lamp, experience it as a lamp? Is that true? Do we all see it as a lamp?
Yes.
Yeah? Do a herd of cats coming in here from Instagram experiencing this object, will they call it a light?
Probably not.
Probably not, right? But they'll probably agree as a herd of cats that it's this kind of thing. Whatever it is for them. It's not ours, right? True reality is in the same room having an experience of this object. If all the cats leave and all the humans leave, what's left? No human eyes sensing this object. No cat herd sensing this object. What sits here? That thing.
The potential of both.
Mm-hmm.
Of anything.
Of anything, right? It is empty of being lamp. It is empty of being whatever cats perceive. They say that fact we have to think about. We have to cognize constantly. That fact will free you, but we don't have it as a regular thing. That's hidden. That's cohere. Cohere means hidden. Then there's a third reality. Shinto cohere. The word Shinto means very, very hidden. Shinto cohere. There's stuff even deeper than that in reality. And one of the examples they use in that is the subtle workings of karma. Why the shade of this brick is like this here and not there. If everything is caused, something caused that. You could say it's the lamp. Well, why did the lamp appear? You can say, well, we have electricity. Why did you get electricity and not them? You can say, oh, understanding the specific causation for your very reality is only accessible to an enlightened mind. And that's Shinto cohere. And they make that fact about the preliminary overview of every Vinaya text, because if that's true, then they are the only beings that can tell you how to tame our minds, because we don't have the capacity. It's Shinto cohere for us. I don't know, I truly don't know if I'm mean to you or nice to you, what my result would be. I know that if I want your ring, I could just take it. And I will have your ring. And I think it came from me taking it. And the Buddha would say, like Gary, my original Buddha would say, Hector, you're wrong, you're stupid. It's not the way you get a ring. You don't just take it. But I have it, I took it and I have it. You're wrong. They can see the true causation why a ring appeared in my hand. Because everybody that tries to take a ring doesn't get a ring. Big deal. 10-minute break, then exciting stuff to come. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Easter Bunny.
Yeah.